when Sarah Chen checked out To Kill a Mockingbird from Millfield High's library on October 3, 2024, she expected to read about racism in the 1930s. Instead, the book started telling her about her own grandmother's secret affair from 1967, a secret that had been buried for over 50 years, and that Sarah had never heard from anyone in her family. Sarah had stopped by the library after school because she had a last-minute assignment for AP Literature. She needed to analyze Harper Lee's classic novel, and she had never read it before. Millfield High's library was located in an old building with wood-paneled shelves and that familiar old book smell. Librarian Ms. Rodriguez had smiled as she checked out the book. "Excellent choice," she had said. "This book has taught many students a great deal over the years." Sarah hadn't understood the deeper meaning behind those words at the time. She took the book home and started reading that evening. The first few pages were normal Scout Finch's story, the small town in Alabama, the American South of the 1930s, but halfway through the third chapter, things began to change. In the middle of the page, as Scout was watching her father during the Tom Robinson trial, the words suddenly shifted. Before Sarah's eyes, Harper Lee's writing vanished and a different story appeared in its place. May 16, 1967. James came again today. We met in the backyard while Richard was at work. I love my husband, but this feeling with James, I can't describe it. I don't know what my daughter Linda would think if she found out, but I can't stop this. Sarah looked up from the book, rubbed her eyes, and looked again. The page showed Harper Lee's original text again. Scout's story continued normally. What had just happened? Had she been hallucinating from exhaustion? She closed the book and decided to get a glass of water and try again. But when she opened to the same page, the same thing happened. Harper Lee's text disappeared and was replaced by that mysterious diary entry. This time she read more carefully. Asterisk, the name Linda caught Sarah's attention. That was her mother's name, and the date of the writing, 1967. Her mother had been born that year. Her heart began racing. This couldn't be possible, but the name James in the writing also seemed familiar to her. It was the name of a man she had seen in her grandmother Rose's old photographs, someone her mother called an old neighbor. Sarah continued turning pages. Each time, Harper Lee's original text was replaced by what appeared to be personal diary entries from her mother's mother, Rose. June 3, 1967. James's wife Susan seemed suspicious. She looked at me strangely at the market today. I know I should end this relationship, but July 15, 1967. Linda is pregnant. Richard is so happy. I wish I could be sure about the child's real father. Sarah dropped the book when she read the last line. This was impossible. Her grandmother Rose had died in 2019 and had never mentioned such a relationship. Besides, this was a book, Harper Lee's To Kill a Mockingbird. How could it contain her grandmother's personal diary entries? Sarah picked up the book again. This time she approached it more methodically, carefully examining each page. What was interesting was that the third chapter wasn't the only page where the text changed. Throughout the book, on random pages, Harper Lee's writing was replaced by Rose's diary entries, and those entries told a story that Sarah's family had never mentioned. Her grandmother Rose had apparently had a long-term relationship with someone named James. This relationship had continued even after Sarah's mother Linda was born. In fact, from what the entries suggested, Linda's biological father was uncertain. Sarah thought about calling her mother, but then stopped. How would she explain this information? Would she say, "Mom, the book I checked out from the library is telling me about grandmother's secret relationship in the 1960s? Instead, she decided to return the book to the library. Maybe there was a problem with the book. Maybe pages had been switched, or there was some kind of printing error. The next day after school, she brought the book back to Ms. Rodriguez. "There's a problem with this book," Sarah said carefully. "Some of the pages are strange." Ms. Rodriguez frowned. "Strange? How strange? The text sometimes changes. It's not what Harper Lee wrote. Other things appear." Ms. Rodriguez's expression changed. A momentary look of panic appeared, then quickly returned to normal. She said slowly. "This sometimes happens. Old books, you know. Print quality can deteriorate over time." But Sarah wasn't satisfied with Ms. Rodriguez's explanation. The librarian's reaction seemed very strange, as if she had experienced this situation before. "Could I get another copy?" Sarah asked. "Of course." Ms. Rodriguez went to the shelf and brought another copy of the same book. "This is a newer edition. You shouldn't have any problems." Sarah took the new copy home and opened the same chapter. This time, Harper Lee's original text was there and didn't change. But Sarah couldn't forget what she had read in those diary entries. Had her grandmother Rose really had an affair in the 1960s? And if so, how had this information ended up in a book? A few days later, Sarah returned to the library, this time to check out a different book, The Great Gatsby. She had read F. Scott Fitzgerald's classic novel before, so it would be easier to notice any changes in the text. She took the book home and opened it. The first few pages were the normal Gatsby story, but on the 5th page, the passage about Jay Gatsby's parties suddenly changed. Marcus met with me after school today. I want to tell him how I feel, but I don't know how he'll react. He's so handsome, and I'm just weird girl Sarah. Sarah's heart stopped. These were her own thoughts. Marcus was indeed a boy she liked, and she had never told anyone about her feelings for him. She had only had these thoughts last week. As she turned the page, Fitzgerald's text had changed again. I wonder if Sarah likes me back. I try to talk to her, but she always seems nervous. I wish I could know what she's thinking. This was written from Marcus's perspective. Sarah had never told Marcus her feelings, but the book knew his thoughts. Sarah closed the book and tried to breathe. Now she was beginning to understand what was happening. This wasn't just a printing error. The library books at Millfield High were somehow reading people's thoughts, memories, and secrets and writing them on no pages. The next day at school, Sarah carefully observed the library. Students were normally checking out and returning books. None of them seemed to be experiencing anything strange. During break, she approached her best friend Emma. Emma, have you ever noticed anything strange about books you've checked out from the library? Emma thought. Strange? What kind of strange? Like the text being different? Things in the book that shouldn't be there. Emma's face lit up. Oh, yes. Last week I had checked out Pride and Prejudice, and there was a section where Elizabeth Bennet had very strange thoughts. Very modern thoughts, not the kind Jane Austen would write. Sarah's pulse quickened. What kind of thoughts? Elizabeth kept thinking about her grade on a math test and complaining about how Mrs. Williams taught class. The strange thing was, I had also gotten a bad grade on Mrs. Williams's math test last week. Sarah stared at Emma in fascination. Do you think that was a coincidence? I don't know. Probably. Why are you asking? Sarah decided to explain the situation. She told Emma about her grandmother's diary entries she found in To Kill a Mockingbird, and her own thoughts she discovered in The Great Gatsby. Emma was initially skeptical, but the details Sarah described were too specific, especially the part about Marcus. Emma was the only person who had noticed Sarah's feelings for Marcus. This is very weird, Emma said. It's like the books are reading our thoughts. That's exactly what I think. But how and why? The two girls made plans to examine the library more closely. The next day during lunch break, they toured every corner while pretending to do research in the library. The library building was old, built in the 1950s. Most students only came to check out and return books, so Sarah and Emma's detailed examination didn't attract much attention. They observed Ms. Rodriguez. The librarian was doing her normal duties, putting books back on shelves, helping students using the computer system. But Sarah noticed that when Ms. Rodriguez put books back on shelves, she held each one in a special way. It seemed like she held the books in her hands for a while, closed her eyes, and then put them in place. Emma saw this behavior too. It's like she's doing meditation with the books, she whispered, or transferring something to them. Sarah replied. In the back of the library, in the reference section, Sarah noticed an old cabinet she hadn't seen before. The cabinet was locked and had staff only written on it. I wonder what's in there, she wondered. Emma checked around. Ms. Rodriguez was busy at the front desk and no one else was there. Let's take a look, she said. They tried to pick the lock on the cabinet, but it wouldn't open. But Sarah noticed there was a small window on the side. The window's glass was frosted, but she could see inside. Inside were shelves full of old diaries. Notebooks and folders each had names written on them. Sarah could see some names she recognized, students who had graduated in previous years, even some teachers. What is this? Emma asked. Sarah couldn't answer because she saw her own name on the top shelf of the cabinet. There was a folder that read Sarah Chen, 2024. Emma, Sarah said, her voice shaking. Our files are in there. Emma looked too and saw her own name, Emma Rodriguez, 2024. The two girls looked at each other. It was now clear that this wasn't a coincidence. If the library is collecting our information, Sarah said, what is it doing it for? And is Ms. Rodriguez part of this? Emma asked. They needed to do more research to find answers to their questions, but they couldn't do much. Research during school hours. That evening, Sarah researched Millfield High's library on the internet. She couldn't find much information about the library's history, but she learned that it had received a grant for a special research program in the 1970s. The program's purpose was to develop innovative information archiving techniques for student development. The phrase information archiving techniques caught Sarah's attention. Could this be a program to develop technology for transferring students' thoughts and memories to books? The next day, Sarah checked out a much older book from the library, Khalil Gibran's classic The Prophet, written in 1923. She didn't know anyone who had read this book, and since it was very old, it might give different results. When she took the book home, she encountered something she never expected. Gibran's mystical writings weren't there. Instead, the book was filled with much older memories. 1943, the war continues. John sent a letter from the front. I miss him. This library project is very important. We must find new ways for future generations to access knowledge. 1956, first. Experiment successful. Books can absorb human experiences, but we can't do it in a controlled way yet. 1967, Rose Chen came to the library today. She seemed very stressed. I know about the situation with James. I transferred those memories to the Mockingbird book for security. Sarah read the last line twice. Rose Chen, that was her grandmother. And this person knew about her grandmother's relationship with James in 1967 and had transferred those memories to the To Kill a Mockingbird book. She continued reading the book. 1975. The program was officially terminated, but I'm continuing it. This information must not be lost. Human experiences, loves, fears, secrets, they all must be preserved. 1989. I'm retiring, but I've handed the project over to Rodriguez. She understands its importance. Sarah closed the book and took a deep breath. Now she understood what was happening. A research program that began in the 1970s had developed technology to transfer human memories and experiences to books. Although the program had been officially terminated, librarians had been secretly continuing. Ms. Rodriguez, thinking that Sarah might not know about her grandmother's secret relationship, had stored those memories in the To Kill a Mockingbird book. Now, 50 years later, when Sarah read that book, she had discovered her grandmother's secrets. But this wasn't limited to past memories. Sarah's own current thoughts had also been transferred to The Great Gatsby. This showed that the library wasn't just preserving the past, but was also archiving the present. So what about the future? Could books also predict future events? Sarah went back to the library to test this, and this time checked out a much newer book, a science fiction novel published in 2020. If the library system could really predict future events, it might be found in this book. She took the book home and opened it. The first few pages were normal science fiction story, but on the 6th page, the text changed. November 15th, 2024. Sarah Chen will tell Emma about this secret she discovered. Emma won't believe it at first, but will be convinced. When she sees the evidence, Sarah realized that today was October 10th. The book was telling what would happen in the future. November 20th, 2024. Sarah and Emma will decide to talk to Ms. Rodriguez. Ms. Rodriguez will explain the real purpose of the library to them. December 5th, 2024. Sarah will learn who James from her grandmother's diary is. This information will change her family. Sarah continued turning pages. Each page told about events that would happen in the future, not just about her life, but about the future of the entire school, city, even country. January 10th, 2025. A big scandal will emerge at Millfield High. The library project will attract media attention. March 15th, 2025. The government will try to close the library, but Sarah Chen and her friends will prevent this. Sarah closed the book and began to think. The library wasn't just preserving past memories, it could also see the future. This was incredible power, but it was also frightening. What should she do with this information? Were the things written in the book really happen, or were these just possibilities? And most importantly, who was behind this system? Was Ms. Rodriguez just an intermediary, or was she part of a larger organization? Sarah knew she needed to talk to Emma about this. According to the book, she would tell Emma everything written in the book on November 15th. But did she have to wait for that date, or could she make her own choices? Learning that the library could see the future caused Sarah to question her free will. If everything was predetermined, did her choices have any meaning? But then she thought, maybe the library showed future possibilities, not definite outcomes. Maybe she could change the future with her own choices. With this thought, she decided to tell Emma everything immediately. The book said she would do this on November 15th, but she chose to do it on October 11th. She called Emma and asked to meet. Urgently. Double quotes Emma. What I'm going to tell you will seem very strange, but please listen to me. Millfield High's library isn't just lending books. It's doing much more. Sarah told Emma everything: her grandmother's diary entries, her own thoughts appearing in Gatsby, the library project's history in the old book, and the science fiction novel showing future events. Emma was initially skeptical, but when Sarah showed the evidence, she was convinced. The two girls decided to research the library's real purpose more together over the next few weeks. They carefully checked out different books and examined each one's contents. What they discovered was incredible. Every book in the library had become a kind of information storage system. Old books contained past memories not just from Millfield High students, but from everyone in the city. Middle-aged books contained current thoughts and emotions. New books showed future events. This system had been working for 50 years. Every student, unknowingly, had been feeding their thoughts and memories into the library system. And this information had been stored in books in a way that future students could access. But this wasn't just information storage. Sarah and Emma realized that some books were actually trying to influence people's behavior. Especially books with future predictions were directing readers to make certain choices. This discovery disturbed them. The library wasn't just a passive archive, it was actively directing people's lives. Finally, on November 20th, as predicted in the book, they decided to talk to Ms. Rodriguez. Ms. Rodriguez, Sarah said carefully, we have some questions about the library. Ms. Rodriguez studied the two girls for a long time. Then she took a deep breath. I knew the time had come to explain this to you, she said. You'd have checked out too many books and noticed too many patterns. Ms. Rodriguez took them to the back room of the library and explained everything. The library project had been started in the 1970s with the purpose of preserving human consciousness and experiences. Its initial aim was to save valuable memories and experiences for future generations. But over time, Ms. Rodriguez said, the system became more complex. It not only preserves the past, but can also predict the future. And sometimes, it can guide people to make better choices. Guide, Emma asked, isn't that manipulation? Ms. Rodriguez paused. This is an ethical gray area, but sometimes it's necessary to intervene to protect people from harmful choices. Sarah asked about her grandmother's story. Did you guide my grandmother to give up her relationship with James? No, Ms. Rodriguez said. That relationship ended on its own. We just preserved the memories so you could learn the truth. But why? Was this something I needed to know? Ms. Rodriguez hesitated. James was your real grandfather, Sarah. Rose loved him, but they couldn't be together at that time due to social pressures. Knowing this information is important for your identity. Sarah's world was shaken. Her grandmother hadn't just had an affair. That relationship was Sarah's real family history. The system's purpose, Ms. Rodriguez continued, is to give people the opportunity to fully learn their own stories, to help them better understand their past, present, and future. But this takes away our right to choose, Emma said. If we know everything about the future in advance, we don't have real choices. Ms. Rodriguez smiled. You're making a choice. Right now, Emma, the book predicted you would talk to me on November 20th. But since you're here today, you've changed the system. Sarah understood, so the predictions can change. Yes, the system shows possibilities, not certainties. People can change the future with their own choices. This explanation put Sarah's mind at ease. The system wasn't deterministic, it was just guiding. So what happens now? Emma asked. This is your choice, Ms. Rodriguez said. You can be part of the system, fight against it, or make it better. Sarah and Emma looked at each other. This wasn't an easy decision. Finally, Sarah spoke. The system's purpose is good, but its method is problematic. People should have access to information to make informed choices, but this shouldn't be in the form of manipulation. Emma agreed. Maybe the system could be more transparent. People could read knowing that books contain special information. Ms. Rodriguez thought, this is possible, but the system has been protected because it's secret. If everyone knows, powerful people might abuse it. Then we need to make it safer. Sarah said. Over the following months, Sarah and Emma worked with Ms. Rodriguez to redesign the library system. It was no longer just a secret archive, but became a guidance system that helped people make conscious choices about their past, present, and future. Sarah decided to find James to learn the real story of her grandmother, Rose. The system showed her that James was still alive and lived just a few cities away. Meeting her grandfather changed Sarah's life. James had never forgotten Rose and was very happy to meet her granddaughter. Sarah finally felt like she had put the missing pieces of her family in place. Emma, thanks to the system, made more conscious choices about her future career. The book showed her where different paths would lead, and she chose the one she found most meaningful. Millfield High's library was now truly a special place. Students knew that they weren't just reading books there, they were discovering their own stories. And Sarah Chen, with the discovery that started from a book, has solved the biggest secret of her life and found the missing piece of her family. The library still collected memories, but now it shared them not secretly, but in a way that would help people understand their own stories. Each book was a door to the past, to the future, and most importantly, to the journey of understanding oneself. Now, every time Sarah went to the library, she didn't go just to read books. She went to discover new chapters of her own story, and sometimes books showed her stories that hadn't been lived yet, but could be lived where her choices could lead. What paths were open ahead of her? The most beautiful part was, she no longer lived these stories alone, with Emma, Ms. Rodriguez, and even her newly met grandfather James. She could share every story. The library no longer just remembered books, it remembered people too, and it encouraged them to become the heroes of their own stories.